Hey guys, Pastor Todd here. Well, you are joining me from my family's workout room right now. And as we're all having to stay inside, we can get pretty rowdy and we need to let some energy out. So, this is a space where my family comes and they're able to move and get all those little wiggles out. And I hope you guys are able to think creatively about how you could do that maybe as a family together. So pick a space, if it's the living room, your bedroom, wherever in your house, and move together. Okay? So we are on day 5 of our 14-day read up to Easter through the Jesus Storybook Bible. And this story is really, really exciting. I hope you guys are ready. It is found on page 160, and it is entitled God's Messenger. Jonah and the Big Fish. Maybe that's a story you guys are familiar with. The scripture comes from the book of Jonah, chapters 1 through 4, and also Matthew, chapter 12, verses 40 through 41 in the Bible. But for tonight, we are going to be reading, obviously, from the Jesus Storybook Bible. So let's get started. It's entitled God's Messenger. God had a job for Jonah, but Jonah didn't want it. Go to Nineveh, God said, and tell your worst enemies that I love them. No, said Jonah. Those are bad people doing bad things. Exactly, said God. They have run far away from me, but I can't stop loving them. I will give them a new start. I will forgive them. No, said Jonah. They don't deserve it. I'll run away, Jonah said to himself, far away, so far away that God won't be able to find me. Then I won't have to do what God says. It's a good plan, he said, because as far as he knew it, it was a good plan. But, of course, it wasn't a good plan at all. It was a silly plan. Because you can run away from God, but he will always come and find you. Jonah went ahead with his not very good plan. 1 ticket to not Nineveh, please, he said, and boarded a boat sailing in the very opposite direction of Nineveh. Well, it wasn't long before a fierce wind blew, and the boat started to lurch and pitch and roll, and everyone started turning green. Jonah sat bolt upright in his bed. You see, the first thing that went wrong with Jonah's not very good plan was that God sent a big storm after him. The sailors couldn't sail their ship properly. We're sinking, they screamed, and started throwing everything overboard. Suitcases, food, whatever they could find. By now, Jonah knew that the storm was his fault. Throw me in instead, he shouted to the sailors, and the storm will stop. The sailors weren't sure. It's the only way you can be saved, Jonah cried. And so 1, 2, 3, splash. No sooner had Jonah hit the water than the waves grew calm, and the wind died down, and the storm stopped. Just then, when Jonah thought it was all over, when he was sure he was going to drown, God sent a big fish to rescue him. The fish swallowed Jonah whole with one big gulp. Jonah must have thought he died. It was so dark in there, like in a tomb. But then he smelled the rotting food and felt the slimy seaweed and knew he wasn't dead. He was in the belly of the fish. Sitting there in the darkness for 3 whole days, Jonah had plenty of time to think. Pretty soon he realized his plan was, well, a very silly plan indeed. He was sorry for running away, he prayed to God from inside the great fish and asked God to forgive him. After 3 days, the fish spat Jonah safely out onto a sandy beach. Just then, Jonah heard someone calling his name. "Go to Nineveh," God said. And this time, Jonah said yes. He went straight to Nineveh and told everyone God's wonderful message. Even though you've run far away from God, he can't stop loving you, Jonah told them. Run to him so he can forgive you. The people of Nineveh listened to Jonah and they started loving God. They learned to do what God said and to stop running away from him, just like Jonah. Many years later, God was going to send another messenger with the same wonderful message. Like Jonah, he would spend 3 days in utter darkness. But this messenger would be God's own son. He would be called the Word because he himself would be God's message. God's message translated into our own language. Everything God wanted to say to the whole world in a person. And that person, of course, is Jesus. And Easter is all about what Jesus did for us and for the entire world. One of my favorite parts of the story of Jonah is that no matter how far away we feel away from God, God knows exactly where we are. No matter how far away we may feel or how disconnected we feel at times, God knows right where we are. And he knows right where each one of you is right now. And he loves you. I hope you guys can talk about your favorite parts of the story too. We'll see you next time.